She wrote about corruption in her diary. 3 days later, she was dead. But 28 years later, a rosary exposed a conspiracy linking a remote Indian convent to the highest levels of the U.S. Catholic Church. This is the unsolved mystery of Sister Anjali Mathur, and why someone still doesn't want you to know the truth. A secluded convent in a quiet hill town, a devoted young nun with uncompromising ideals, and a single night that led to the most unsettling discovery in the history of St. Agnes Convent. 28 years later, questions still linger. Was it an accident, or something far more disturbing? Could a seemingly forgotten piece of evidence hold the key to unraveling this entire mystery? If so, who's determined to keep it hidden, and why have they succeeded for almost 3 decades? Let us travel back to 1995 to the town of Miraj in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. Nestled in the rolling hills, St. Agnes Convent had an air of tranquility. The nuns there devoted their lives to prayer, teaching, and community outreach. Tourists occasionally passed through, drawn by the historical churches and colonial architecture. But for the most part, Miraj was, and remains, a place unaccustomed to international scandal. This story revolves around a young woman named Sister Anjali Mathur. She was only 21 years old when tragedy struck. Born and raised in Chicago, Sister Anjali had traveled to India on a fellowship aimed at fostering cross-cultural ties through missionary work. By all accounts, she was bright, compassionate, and fiercely protective of those who confided in her. Some said she was outspoken, even more so than others in her order, a trait that both endeared her to her peers and placed her in precarious situations. She had a habit of noting every observation in her diary, an item she guarded with the devotion one might expect from a scholar or a journalist. As Sister Anjali settled into her role at St. Agnes Convent, she began hearing whispers of misconduct. Though her fellowship was sponsored by St. Michael's Diocese in New Haven, Connecticut, rumors suggested that the funding itself was part of a larger and potentially sinister financial pipeline. Father Thomas Carter, also from Chicago, had helped establish this cross-cultural program. Ostensibly, it aimed to help impoverished communities and bolster church outreach. But Sister Anjali's diary hints that not all these funds went where they were supposed to. In the mid-1990s, church communities around the world were beginning to face greater scrutiny over accusations of abuse and corruption. Within small convents such as St. Agnes, outside oversight was minimal. Mother Superior Clara de Souza ran the convent with an unwavering sense of duty, driven by a desire to keep the environment disciplined, pious, and free from scandal. For her, protecting the convent's reputation was paramount, even if that meant quelling rumors or discouraging outsiders from asking difficult questions. Those who met Sister Anjali recall that she spoke often of moral integrity and the need for transparency within the church. She had reportedly confronted individuals about missing money and questionable behavior. One can only imagine how lonely this must have felt for a young nun far from home, grappling with the pull of her conscience. In March of 1995, a tragedy would ignite a firestorm of suspicion in Miraj. Sister Anjali was found dead in the convent's water tank. Local law enforcement hastily labeled it a suicide, citing stress and an alleged crisis of faith. But to her family, that story never quite rang true. From Chicago, her brother Arav Mathur, then just 17, had recently spoken to her and heard only determination in her voice, a plan to confront something deeply unethical within the church. There was no sign of despair, only conviction. This is where the story begins. A death, hastily classified as self-inflicted, yet resting on a foundation of unanswered questions. As the years would pass, the circumstances surrounding Sister Anjali's death would open a Pandora's box of institutional secrets. The church, it seemed, was willing to go to great lengths to shield certain individuals. At the center of it all stood St. Agnes Convent, silent and imposing as the allegations piled up. But how could a quiet convent in Mirage become the epicenter of an international scandal? March 12, 1995, began like any other day at the convent. Dawn prayers, communal breakfast, routine chores. But by late morning, rumors spread through the courtyard that Sister Angeli had not been seen since the night before. Concerned, a young novice nun searched the grounds and made a horrifying discovery. Sister Angeli's white veil floating atop the still surface of the convent's water tank. In the subsequent days, subtle hints began to surface. Details that made this so-called open and shut case far from conclusive. To begin with, an attending medical officer privately mentioned that Sister Angeli's autopsy revealed traces of benzodiazepines. These sedatives do not typically appear without a prescription. Coupled with faint bruises on her wrists, the findings raised the question: had she been restrained or rendered incapable of defense? A rumor circulated among the younger nuns. Sister Angeli had been meeting secretly with Father Thomas Carter the night before her death. Their conversation was rumored to be about missing convent funds. There was also talk of a diary page that mentioned her plan to expose wrongdoing, though no such page was officially submitted to investigators. Then, an even more intriguing piece of information emerged. A novice nun claimed she heard raised voices from the convent chapel late that night. This same novice nun disappeared soon after, prompting accusations that she might have been coerced into silence. Or worse, Detective Rohan Malhotra, a principled officer in his late 20s at the time, was assigned to the case. When he started asking uncomfortable questions about the diocese's influence in local politics, he was reportedly discouraged from proceeding. More than one of his higher-ups instructed him to stand down and accept the suicide ruling. Officially, the story was that Sister Angeli struggled with her faith, culminating in a tragic decision. Unofficially, rumors flew that the diocese had pressured local authorities to seal the case quickly. With each passing day, the tension grew. Voices in Mirage called for a deeper inquiry, but these voices were drowned out by more influential figures, anxious to protect the convent's reputation. Newspapers ran short blurbs on the story, only to move on. Observers felt a sense of collective helplessness. The convent, after all, was a sacred place, and its administrators held significant sway in the region. In the end, Sister Angeli's death remained an officially closed case, chalked up to personal torment. However, within the corridors of St. Agnes, the atmosphere grew uneasy. Years would pass before many of these details resurfaced, sparked by a new generation of investigators who refused to let the questions remain buried. Detective Malhotra, frustrated and haunted by self-reproach, quietly kept a separate file of his findings. For a time, he shared them with no one. But if the truth was buried, what would it take to resurrect it nearly 3 decades later? The veil floated, but the bruises on her wrists told a darker story. Fast forward to 2023. Arav Mathur, now 45, is an award-winning journalist living in Chicago. Despite a successful career exposing corporate fraud and government misdeeds, one story has always eluded him: his own sister's fate. He has harbored an unrelenting belief that her death was not a simple suicide, and that the truth was concealed by a powerful network. Over the years, Arav had attempted to shine a spotlight on this case, but he repeatedly came up against sealed settlements and veiled legal threats. Everything changed when a woman named Lena Carter reached out to him. Lena was the estranged daughter of Father Thomas Carter, the very same priest who had once been posted at St. Agnes Convent. She identified herself as a computer specialist with insider knowledge. In an encrypted email, Lena attached a single line that instantly seized Arav's attention. Handle the Mather situation. No loose ends. Dated 1995 and signed by Father Thomas himself, it left little doubt that Sister Anjali's suspicions had triggered alarm bells within the church. Arav immediately contacted Priya Kapoor, a determined Indian-American lawyer based in New Haven. Priya specialized in institutional abuse cases and had a track record of formidable legal battles against powerful organizations. She saw Arav's evidence and recognized that this was more than a single tragedy. This might represent a systemic pattern extending from India to the United States. Together, they launched a cross-continental lawsuit against St. Michael's Diocese, demanding accountability for the events in Mirage. Meanwhile, in India, Detective Rohan Malhotra, long departed from the force, had been living in isolation, burdened by guilt. As word spread that Sister Anjali's case was gaining new momentum, Malhotra stepped forward. He revealed that he had preserved crucial evidence from the 1995 inquiry, fragments of Sister Anjali's diary and a blood-stained rosary that had never appeared in official records. When Arav and Priya arrived in Mirage, they convinced Malhotra to share what he had. The diary fragments, although partially burned, included lines such as, "Confronted Father T about missing convent donations," and "Strange phone call from the diocese in the U.S., I fear for my life." The rosary, if tested for DNA, might either confirm or dispel the rumors of foul play. Priya arranged for modern forensic tests on the rosary, using a private lab to avoid tampering. The results came back with an unexpected level of clarity. Partial DNA from Father Thomas Carter remained on the chain, along with traces of Sister Anjali's blood. This new evidence effectively dismantled the suicide narrative. It pointed to a physical confrontation, one that might have turned fatal. As these findings became public, the media in India and the U.S. intensified coverage, forcing local law enforcement and church officials to confront renewed scrutiny. However, the diocese's lawyers fought back, citing that Father Thomas had passed away years ago and could not defend himself. Bishop William Hartman, one of the leaders at St. Michael's, offered vague regret about Sister Anjali's unfortunate demise, but stopped short of admitting any wrongdoing by church authorities. Undeterred, Arav persisted. He found support in a small but determined collective of activists, local journalists, and other families who felt similarly stonewalled by religious institutions. The investigation snowballed. Bank documents revealed large sums of money funneled from St. Agnes to a U.S. slush fund used to settle abuse allegations. Lena Carter, for her part, continued to unearth encrypted emails referencing a missing novice nun who needed relocation. Despite these revelations, powerful entities fought to suppress the truth at every turn. Was Sister Anjali's death the only casualty of this elaborate conspiracy, or were there more untold stories buried under layers of influence and hush money? Who orchestrated the effort to silence Sister Anjali? And why did her fate remain hidden for so long? Multiple theories have circulated through the years, but the emerging evidence implicates a specific set of individuals and circumstances. Suspect 1, Father Thomas Carter, the priest with a dark double life. The memo to handle the Mather situation speaks volumes. Father Thomas's outward charm masked a darker side, supported by allegations of financial impropriety and possible abuse. Was Sister Anjali's moral conviction a direct threat to his secret dealings? Suspect 2, Mother Superior Clara de Souza, the Mother Superior who chose secrets over souls. Though no direct evidence ties her to the act itself, she admitted to burning diary pages and discouraging a deeper investigation. Did her loyalty to the convent's reputation override her responsibility to seek justice for a devoted nun? Suspect 3, local law enforcement and church officials. gatekeepers of the status quo. Detective Malhotra was coerced into closing the case. The hush money allegedly paid to Sister Anjali's family hinted at collusion across 2 continents. Could corrupt officials have actively shielded those responsible? Suspect 4. A broader conspiracy tied to St. Michael's Diocese, the network that couldn't afford exposure. Revelations of a slush fund and past abuse allegations suggest a much larger pattern. Bishop William Hartman, though in declining health, kept journals referencing international matters and undisclosed issues. Could Sister Anjali's confrontation with Father Thomas have unraveled a global cover-up? As these theories crystallized, observers noted the unchecked authority within some religious institutions and the intense stigma facing those who blow the whistle. What do you think? Was Sister Anjali targeted purely for financial gain, or did her moral convictions threaten a powerful network? The final hearings in India, fueled by Detective Malhotra's files and Lena Carter's leaks, forced the court to reopen the case. Public opinion polarized. Some saw the push as an assault on religious freedoms, while others hailed Arav and Priya's dogged pursuit of justice. Meanwhile, crucial figures like Father Thomas, deceased, and Bishop Hartman, frail, cast a looming shadow over the possibility of a true resolution. And in a legal system riddled with loopholes, what chance did the truth really stand? The wheels of justice, although painfully slow, began to turn. In a closed-door session, a gravely ill Mother Superior, Clara D'Souza, confessed that Sister Anjali had threatened to reveal Father Thomas's secret financial dealings. Clara admitted to burning the diary, but denied knowing about the murder. Was she lying, or just another pawn in a much larger game? Soon afterward, Bishop William Hartman passed away in the United States, taking many secrets to his grave. Nonetheless, Lena Carter uncovered references in Hartman's encrypted journals to large-scale hush money and memos describing a broader strategy for silencing allegations. Public outcry gained momentum, with protests erupting outside St. Michael's Diocese in New Haven. Global calls for transparency grew louder. When the Indian court officially reopened the 1995 case, forensic reports confirmed that the original autopsy had been tampered with. Sister Anjali's death could no longer be labeled suicide. Father Thomas Carter was posthumously indicted on charges of homicide and conspiracy. Legal experts believed the church would frame him as a lone rogue. Prosecutors attempted to bring criminal charges against the diocese itself, but legal loopholes shielded the institution. The church ultimately faced minimal consequences, an outcome many deemed a deeply frustrating, incomplete victory. Still, revelations continued. Lena Carter leaked over 200 names of individuals who had lodged abuse complaints against St. Michael's, igniting a global debate on how many stories, like Sister Anjali's, had been deliberately buried. In multiple countries, fresh investigations began, each echoing the unsettling pattern of intimidation, evidence suppression, and systemic cover-ups. For Arav, the battle wasn't just legal, it was personal. With Priya Kapoor, he founded the Anjali Foundation, supporting survivors of institutional abuse, whether in religious orders, schools, or any setting where authority can be misused. Detective Rohan Malhotra, once complicit in the flawed system, found redemption by examining similar cold cases, determined to prevent more tragedies from slipping through bureaucratic cracks. In a poignant twist, Lena Carter visited Sister Anjali's grave in Chicago, leaving a note that read, "The truth won't stay buried." Simple yet powerful, the message underscored the moral of a decades-long struggle. No matter how thoroughly secrets are hidden, perseverance can drag them into the light. One note on a grave reminds us the truth won't stay buried, but what else is still hidden? And who will pay the price when it finally emerges? In the end, Sister Anjali Mathur's story is not just about one nun's tragic demise. It's about the cost of speaking out in a system that values silence over integrity. It proves that courage can transcend borders, linking a remote convent in Mirage to powerful entities in the United States. And it demonstrates how modern technology, guided by unwavering conviction, can pry open even the most fortified secrets. Yet questions remain. Will the revelations sparked by this case lead to lasting reforms within religious institutions worldwide? Or will the cycle of hush money and hidden agreements continue? Only time and our collective vigilance can decide. If you think this story is shocking, wait until you hear what we uncover next. Imagine devoting your life to uncovering the truth behind a loved one's death. Would you have the strength to keep going? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe for more true crime investigations that challenge the powerful, and share this video to keep Sister Angeli's voice alive. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Do you think justice was truly served, or is this just the tip of the iceberg? By joining the conversation, you become part of a community that demands accountability, no matter how influential the opposition. Together, we can ensure that important voices, like Sister Angeli's, are never silenced again.